In the quiet suburbs of Fukuoka, where wooden houses leaned close to narrow streets and the evening air carried the scent of grilled fish from corner stalls, a young girl named Aiko lived with her mother. She was known for her delicate laughter. Each morning, she walked to school with her satchel bouncing against her back, her black hair neatly tied into 2 braids. Yet behind her calm eyes lay a weight no one seemed to see. Aiko often spoke about something she called her secret game. The other children laughed, thinking it was only her way of inventing stories. But when asked what the game was, she would smile nervously, glance at the floor, and say nothing more. Her teacher, Sensei Haruka, was a kind woman in her 30s, with a sharp gaze that missed very little. One afternoon, while her pupils were busy with crayons and paper, she noticed Aiko sitting apart, drawing in silence. When the lesson ended, Haruka collected the children's work. She froze when her eyes fell on Aiko's drawing. It was not the usual colorful picture of cherry blossoms or carp streamers. Instead, it showed a small child in a dim room, her eyes wide with fear. Above her head, in trembling letters, were the words, "This is not a game." Haruka's heart sank. She looked up, but Aiko had already slipped quietly out of the classroom, her satchel hugged tightly to her chest. The sun was setting over the Hakata River, turning the water gold. Haruka stood alone in the classroom, the drawing trembling in her hands. She felt a shiver rise through her body. Whatever the secret game was, it was no game at all. The next morning, the classroom buzzed with chatter, yet Aiko remained silent at her desk. Her small hands rested on her satchel, clutching it as if it were armor. Sensei Haruka walked between the rows of pupils, but her attention was fixed on the girl. When the others were busy, she crouched beside Aiko and asked softly, "Would you like to draw again today?" Aiko's lips moved, but no words came. She lowered her gaze and whispered, "He says it is only a game." Haruka felt a chill run through her. She did not press further, not with the other children so near. Instead, she touched the girl's shoulder lightly and said, "You are safe here." But Aiko's eyes flickered with fear, and she turned away. That evening, Haruka carried the drawing home in her bag. She lit a small lamp in her apartment and studied it again, the trembling words echoing in her mind. The sound of the wind against the paper doors felt heavier than usual, as though the night itself was listening. On the way to school the following day, Haruka noticed Aiko walking alone along the Hakata River. The morning light danced on the water, but the girl's steps were slow, her head bowed. Haruka followed at a distance. Aiko paused by the riverbank, picked up a stone, and dropped it into the water, without joy. Haruka approached carefully. "Aiko," she said gently, "you do not have to keep secrets if they hurt you." The girl shook her head quickly. "He will be angry," she whispered. "He says it is our secret game." Haruka crouched beside her. "Real games do not make you afraid, Aiko." Before the girl could answer, footsteps echoed from the narrow path behind them. Aiko stiffened, clutching her satchel to her chest. Haruka turned, but saw no one. Only the rustle of the bamboo leaves filled the silence. That evening, Aiko's mother served miso soup and rice in their small kitchen. Aiko touched the food but barely ate. She excused herself early and retreated to her futon. She pulled the blanket up to her chin and closed her eyes, but sleep did not come. The night was heavy with cicadas. In her half-dream, she saw the shadow of a tall figure standing at the sliding door, whispering in a voice like smoke. "This is our game, Aiko. You must never tell." Her body trembled under the blanket. She wanted to cry out for her mother, but the voice echoed louder in her mind. She pressed her satchel against her chest even as she slept, as though it could protect her. The next week, Haruka began to notice things she had missed before. Aiko's sleeves were always long, even when the spring sun warmed the classrooms. Her movements were cautious, as though hiding something beneath the fabric. One morning, as Aiko reached for her pencil, the cuff of her sleeve slipped back. Faint bruises marked her skin. She quickly pulled the sleeve down, eyes wide with panic. Haruka felt her throat tighten, but she forced her voice to remain calm. "You are not alone, Aiko. Remember that." The girl's lips quivered, but she stayed silent. Outside, cherry blossoms drifted past the window, their fragile petals falling to the ground like secrets that refused to stay hidden. It happened after class one rainy afternoon. The other children had gone home, leaving the classroom empty except for the sound of rain on the roof. Aiko lingered by Haruka's desk, twisting the strap of her satchel. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Sensei, he says it is a secret game, but it hurts." Haruka's chest ached. She bent down and took the girl's trembling hands. Aiko's eyes filled with tears. She had carried these words like stones for far too long. "Thank you for telling me," Haruka said softly. "You are safe here." Aiko nodded faintly, but the fear on her face did not lift. Somewhere in the silence of the empty halls, footsteps seemed to echo, though no one was there. Fukuoka was a city of narrow alleys and quiet shrines, where neighbors nodded politely but rarely asked questions. Secrets lived easily behind closed doors. As Haruka walked home with Aiko one afternoon, she felt the weight of eyes on her. People glanced quickly, some with suspicion, others with sympathy. Whispers floated like the drifting petals of wisteria. That night, Haruka sat at her desk, writing in her journal by the glow of a single lamp. "Aiko has been brave enough to speak," she wrote. "I must be brave enough to act." Outside, the lanterns swayed in the wind, their faint light trembling against the paper walls. The rainy season arrived. Heavy clouds gathered over the city, the river swelled, and the air was thick with the scent of wet earth. Haruka noticed a man near Aiko's neighborhood. He avoided her gaze when they crossed paths. His silence was sharp, his eyes restless. It was as though he sensed the truth had begun to stir. Aiko grew quieter still, clinging to her satchel like a shield. Each night, she checked the corners of her room before lying down, as if expecting the shadow to step out from the darkness. The storm outside mirrored the storm rising within her small heart. Haruka called Aiko to the classroom one evening after the others had left. The rain drummed against the windows. She laid a blanket across the girl's shoulders and knelt to meet her eyes. "You are not to blame, Aiko. And you will never be alone again." The girl clutched the blanket, tears spilling freely. She whispered, "I want it to stop." Haruka drew her into an embrace. Her promise was silent but unbreakable. The secret would not remain buried in shadows.